once we signed off on Thursday's show, did not think we would be talking anything near what we're going to talk about here a lot in this first hour. And that question is, and that discussion is, essentially, what the hell happened to the college football season? Because personally, from yours truly, I am shocked that essentially we've gone from starting the season, releasing the schedule, practice is starting, to now all of a sudden we're not going to have a season. We're not going to try. The season's over. It's dead. Maybe we'll get spring, maybe not. But college football in the fall is all but over. So, at least to me, this feels like it's come out of nowhere. And I'll say this, at least, obviously we've had a lot of tough shows, right? We've kind of restarted the Morning Boys with myself here, I think right around March, right when the pandemic first started. So we've been on it basically since the beginning. I've had little sports to talk about for the most part. So I feel like, at least personally, maybe I'm wrong. If I am wrong, please let me know. Facebook, World Art Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, WWSRN_radio. Tweet me, write on Facebook, comment if you think I am wrong in this thought that I'm about to put out here, or this assertion I'm about to put out here. But I personally feel the way we've handled the show the last 4 months is that we've looked at the coronavirus, I think, realistically, and its impact on sports, I should say. Right? I think, there's no hiding or there's no trying to deny the fact that college football especially was going to be the hardest sport to resume during the pandemic. I don't think the strategy, at least for myself, was kind of bury your head in the sand, pretend the virus isn't going on, and just hope it goes away by the time college football starts. I don't think we've kind of been fear-mongers or, being almost too overly dramatic or too overly, I guess dramatic is the right word, too overly dramatic in terms of the impact of coronavirus. Sports cannot resume, freaking out over one test. I feel like for the most part, and again, this is a personal assertion here, that I feel like we've handled it for the most part in a realistic manner. Sports want to resume. Positive tests are going to happen. You got to do the best you can to keep players safe, keep coaches safe, and keep everyone at least safe. So I feel like in at least addressing and recognizing the coronavirus is a real thing. The pandemic is a real thing. It's serious. You can't, it's not something to just sneeze at, or it's not something to just kind of lock yourself in your room for the last 4 months and just kind of not even see the sunlight. But with that said, so I feel like we've been on top of it, right? We've discussed in previous shows the challenges college football has to face. I really thought the conference-only schedule, to me, was the best opportunity for college football to play because all the testing protocols are the same. Once you start playing teams outside your conference, once you start playing teams in lower conferences with smaller budgets and less testing resources, to me, that is where you really put teams at risk. If you have teams like Alabama, like Clemson playing Chattanooga, or, a Division III school or Division 1A school, yeah, their resources aren't going to be the same at an Alabama, at a Clemson. Can't test as regularly. So I really thought, at least for college football to have a chance, I liked the conference-only schedule. And I think, or at least I thought, I should say, that while July was bad, right? July coming off of July 4th, going to middle of July and end of July, we had outbreaks on campuses all around the country. Teams were struggling to even just hold voluntary workouts without players getting sick. I'll be honest, that was really a low point, at least for me, of having confidence that college football could be played this fall. But I'll be honest, I feel like those concerns kind of quieted down. The positive tests around college campuses have kind of slowed down a little bit here in the last few weeks. And at least looking at the landscape of the country and looking at the landscape of these universities, the virus the last few weeks has not gotten worse. In some cases, it's actually gotten better. Look at Northwestern. Northwestern is a perfect example of a team that had a positive test, shut it all down, was quarantining, and realized then that positive test was actually a false positive. No one actually had contracted the virus, which is good. I mean, obviously, rather be safe than sorry, but it's good that you rather have a false positive than a false negative. So Northwestern was back at practice. Ohio State, a team that had to quarantine shut down, they're back at practice. So you had teams starting to come out of this, and at least it seemed to appear to that college football was going to start. Again, who knows once it actually gets started if they can keep players safe and if they can finish the season. But it seemed by all indications, once we got past July, and there's really no discussion of canceling the season, moving it to the fall, even delaying it a month or two, it seemed like, okay, we're going to try. We're going to attempt to start. We'll see where we get from there. So to me now, to all of a sudden log on Twitter on Saturday morning to see whether it's the likes of Pete Thamel does a great job at Yahoo, Pat Forty does a great job at Sports Illustrated. They've been all over the impact of the virus in college athletics specifically, tweeting out and saying, industry sources are telling them that basically the season's all but dead. Big Ten is desperate to cancel their season. Feels out of nowhere. And I'm going to ask you, where did this come from? Am I living in I don't think I'm living in some sort of fantasy world here where, again, I had my head buried in the sand and just assume that, everything's going to be okay. We've laid out the challenges on this show. And with that said, there was still really, I feel like there was no real warning. There was no real inclination that all of a sudden the season was in peril. Dennis Dodd, who's been on the show, does a great job at CBS Sports covering college football specifically. He wrote an article on Saturday talking to two different Power 5 athletic directors. And this is quotes that they told him anonymously in his article. I want to read these for you. So one Power 5 athletic director over the weekend told Dennis Dodd, quote, "I think it's inevitable the season will not be played this fall." Another Power 5 athletic director, "I'm in the opinion of it's when, not if, the 2020 season is canceled." The MAC, Mid-American Conference, who was the first Division I conference to cancel their fall season, their announcement on Saturday morning adds more momentum to the finish line. I think everyone's medical group is now telling them all the same thing. We have to keep having these same conversations, end quote. So two different Power 5 athletic directors are telling Dennis Dodd it's inevitable, essentially the season's dead, and it's a question of when, not if. But here's my question. Where was the sentiment earlier this week? Where was the sentiment last week, 2 weeks ago? Because guess what? Guess what these universities, guess what these conferences did last week? They inspired hope. The Pac-12, the ACC, the Big Ten, the SEC, 4 of the 5 Power 5 conferences, all last week released their schedules. All of them. Pac-12 announced their start September 26th. The Big Ten tried to start on Labor Day weekend. The ACC and the SEC are starting a little later on, but they all released their new schedules. Their 10-game schedules, they all released the different opponents when they're playing. So if this was such a concern, if this was such an inevitability, according to his athletic directors, why would you release the schedule? Not to mention, not only releasing the schedule, they started practice already. Ohio State's at practice. The Big Ten is at practice. How are you starting practice and training camp for a season that is supposed to, if you're Ohio State, and if you're anyone in the Big Ten, starting in less than a month? It's August 10th. Ohio State's playing September 3rd. A lot of the other teams are playing September 5th on Labor Day weekend. How are you starting practice if you have this sentiment, if you have this belief that the season is going to be canceled and it's inevitable that the season is going to be canceled? How? If you were that concerned, if you were that dead set and you had that much conviction that there was no season going to be had this fall, you wouldn't put out the schedule. You wouldn't even allow teams to continue to work out, let alone practice. What are you doing? And now, if you've been on Twitter, especially recently within the last few hours, you've seen a lot of players come out and voice their opinion of they want to play. So here's another question I have. Along with why'd you put out the schedules, why are you allowing teams to practice, how much have players, the ones actually on the field, the ones actually taking the risk, how much have they been consulted through this process? Because guess what? Just 2 weeks ago, when we talked about the Pac-12 players uniting together and putting out their list of demands, it seems like their main concern, forget the revenue, forget the NIL for a second, forget the money aspect, a lot of their concerns, a lot of their demands were centered around protocols for keeping them safe during the pandemic. Different ways that schools can implement protocols to keep the players safe, testing to keep everyone on the same page, and keep transparency basically the main issue, or the main goal, I should say. Excuse me. So now, that's my question. The players are actually taking the risk. Were they consulted at all? Because similar to what the NFL did, we saw the NFL players all tweeting in hashtags they want to play. Major League Baseball tweeted that when and where, when they wanted to play, when they're having their labor negotiations. Football players are doing the same thing. Hashtag I want to play. We want to play. We are united. And now last night, led by Trevor Lawrence, it seems like the players started some sort of a de facto players union. So if they want to play, if they've been given the option to opt out if they don't feel safe, right, which we've seen plenty of players, including prominent players, take that option, So if the players want to play, you give them the option to opt out. What is holding up a fall season? I don't understand. And what I really don't understand is this enlightenment, is this falling in love with aspect of spring football. Because according to the reports you hear, according to the reporters that are especially tied into the Big Ten, the new Big Ten commissioner, Kevin Warren, is a big fan, a big proponent of spring football. And I've talked about it on the show. We've talked about it weeks ago. Would a spring football season be a good idea? And I'll be honest. I'm going to backtrack here. I thought about it. Pete Thamel wrote some great articles about advocating for spring football. I really did think, you know what, maybe this is a viable option. But the more I think about it, now we're this close. You think about the real challenges. And when you hear athletic directors like Penn State Sandy Barber saying spring is the last resort, thought about it more, you did some more research, you understand why it's a last resort. It really is going to be very difficult to pull off a spring season. No guarantee the virus will be any better in February, March than it is right now. No guarantee a vaccine will be created, let alone be effective. And you're going to have a significantly shorter season. Significantly. And we have 10 games. I thought that was pretty legitimate. Who knows? You could have 6 games, let alone all the players that would leave. So you go to the draft and try to keep their draft stock high. Not to mention playing two seasons in a calendar year. So I'll be honest. Hearing this news over the weekend, especially on Saturday, and now seeing the players trying their hardest to revive the season, but constantly seeing reports that the season is basically dead on arrival. We're just waiting now for official word. I am blown away. I am shocked, flabbergasted, floored. Because I'll be honest, I didn't see this coming. Thought we had our ear to the ground. I thought we'd been doing a good job of monitoring the situation. But even myself, I am floored and shocked that we have come to this conclusion on August 10th. I'm not sure what happened to delaying the season. Remember, we had all these different ideas. We had Brett McMurphy on, who was one of the first reporters to discuss the different options college football had, including delaying it until October, constantly putting the season back, maybe even putting half the season in the fall, half the season in the spring. And now it feels like college football and their university presidents and their athletic directors and the commissioners of the different conferences are all just bypassing all those different ideas they threw out there in March and April and just going right to canceling the season. Which I think if they cancel this fall season, I don't think a spring season is going to work and come to light, which means we will be without college football for a full calendar year. From 2019 to 2021. It's going to be a long, long time without, to me, personally, the greatest sport that there is in this country. So I'm curious, what are your emotions? Because at least for me, again, I was taken back, shocked, very, very disappointed, very depressed. So I'd love to get just your emotions because, again, I don't know about yourself. For me, I was definitely shocked by this decision. I didn't see it coming. I feel blindsided. And should they try to have a college football season this fall? I'm 100% on that side. I think they should absolutely try. Again, who knows if it's even possible? Who knows if the NFL can even get a season off? To me, seeing the players wanting to play, looking that spring is not really, to me at least, a real option, I think they should try. If they try, it doesn't work out, okay. What are you going to do? We're in a pandemic. The virus wins as usual. At least we tried. At least you tried. To basically just punt and basically almost pull the rug out from everyone and having these emergency meetings and making these decisions so swiftly, and it feels, again, out of nowhere. It really stings. It really hurts.